So I'm Daniela Saioni. I'm in local 873 in Toronto. I've been doing script for 30 years. I've been training script supervisors for 25 years, and I love it. And I've been training them in the classroom. And then last year, I switched to online because, of course, we had to. And it's been great because we've had, I've been able to reach out to students in 11 countries now. So Michaela Kim, who I have here with me, was one of my students in the classroom in January 2020, right? Right before the pandemic. You were with me in the classroom. You had already been doing script before you studied with me, and you did indie features. One of Michaela's features just won Best Feature at Tribeca. Congratulations on the novice. Yes, I'm so proud of you for that. And you've done some TV a little bit here and there. And Michaela was a permit with IATSE 873. All the permits are people that all the new permits were basically people in your class who came in and around in January 2020, which was awesome. So I'll just set up the scenario and then let Michaela talk, and then I'm going to ask you questions if that's cool, Michaela. So in cities and in other, okay, so Toronto is a very major production center in that we just don't stop working. There's just way too much work here, right? And it's actually the case in many production centers around North America, New York, Los Angeles, Vancouver, Atlanta, where we're overrun with work. And as many people as I've trained over the years, which is hundreds and hundreds of people, by the way, there is always still work. We still cannot fill the jobs that are out there. And that's especially been the case this year. So we had a very senior veteran member, leave a big show. And so we started to figure out what could we do. So in my alumni group, I have an alumni group for all the director whispers around the world, but I very often post jobs that are that are in Canada, but especially in Toronto, because like I said, the work just keeps going. So I posted a thing. First of all, I sent a message to every script supervisor and permit in our local and said, is anybody available to do this tier A show with an excellent director? It's a big musical starring a whole bunch of 13-year-old kids. So not the easiest sort of first job for someone. It's not your first job, but you know what I mean? Not the easiest thing to do, to work with 14 actors who are 13 years old. But fun, 100% fun. All the members were working. Everybody said, sorry, not available, not available. So I posted in my alumni group, do we have any permits or non-union members who are available? And one person was available, and that was Michaela, who's actually super qualified. Okay. And I'm telling you guys this story because we can leverage how busy it is to get people trained and to get script assistants. Okay. Oh, what I had pitched was Michaela's available. What if I onboard her? What if she starts off as the script assistant? What if she shadows me in prep and on set? Michaela doesn't need shadowing. She's amazing. In fact, at this point, she's a much better script supervisor than me. And I say that without hesitation. It's true. And so I said to production, what if we do that? She can start as my script assistant, then I'll leave a couple of weeks later and she can take over the show. They asked the director and she was so down with that. She said, I love that idea. I love that idea. She said, we should be doing this more often. Okay, Michaela. So that's how it started. They said yes. Michaela got fully paid for all this, and you're still shooting, right, Michaela?
Yes, we're still shooting. I think now we have 2 weeks and a bit to go. We finished, I believe, August 5th in Toronto.
How did you feel when you got the news, and were you nervous?
Yeah, like super nervous. Super excited, but also nervous because again, like I had not done anything like as the main script supervisor with IATSE. I had only become like an IATSE permit, I guess, just before, oh no,
like 2 months before that. Yeah,
like 2 months.
I remember.
Yeah. Like I was like non-union, just learning and doing non-union stuff for a while. And then I became a permit with NABET, which is the other Canadian Toronto union. And that happened just before the pandemic. So I had done very little with NABET as well. And then I became a permit with IATSE. And then since then, I'd only done daily stuff, second unit stuff. So this was like my first main unit work, and it was like a feature on top of that. So yeah, it was I was super nervous, but like also excited. And I felt really grateful and super lucky to even get the opportunity at all.
Well, I mean, most veteran script supervisors do believe that this should be, oh yes, sorry, Diane, I will answer your question. This should be the norm, that we bring on new people and train them on set for pay. So Diane asks, can you explain how the permit system in Canada works for those who are not Canadian? I thought it was similar in, because I have students in the States who, they don't call you guys permits. Like my student in Chicago, I guess they call you guys overflow. What do they call it in New York? So if you're not a full member, there's a list of people that the union has approved who are allowed to work in our jurisdiction. And they take, like the union takes like a 6% deduction, but otherwise they get all the full benefits and conditions. I know they have it in the Chicago local. I don't know how it works in LA. I have a bunch of students in all those jurisdictions, but I just always assumed you guys had the same system. So in Chicago, they call it the overflow list. Is there an equivalent in New York? Okay, so in New York, you're either a member or you're not. Okay, cool. In Toronto, you're actually, if you're a full member of IATSE, you are not allowed to work outside of IATSE, and some cities and states are very different that way. So in LA, I guess they can work union or non-union, whether or not they're members. Once you become a full member of IATSE, you cannot work outside IATSE. In Toronto and in Vancouver, you can. It just depends on your state and provincial laws. But the permit system allows people, it is meant to allow people to train on the job. We do have a script assistant category in our Toronto local, which again, I assumed was in every local, but I'm told it's not. I'm told there is not a script assistant category in New York, but some locals have it. Like every other department has an assistant, and we do too. It's on the books, but it's almost never used. But there are shows with, 4 cameras or more where it makes 100% sense. There's very intense television shows where it makes 100% sense. So I just want to put it out there that we should keep asking. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt our flow. I just thought that was a really good question, Diane, because I always assume every local runs the same, and obviously it does not. Okay. So Michaela was a permit, which meant that she would be able to be hired before a non-union member. Okay, so that's sort of what it means. There's tiers like member, permit, non-union. Okay, so Michaela, do you want to talk about? We went through prep together. Do you want to talk about what was surprising to you about shadowing me in prep that maybe you hadn't experienced before in the non-union world?
I guess just about everything, like just how everything works. Because I guess just with non-union stuff, like productions tend to be smaller, obviously smaller budget, or it's more informal in a sense. So for instance, you might make your breakdowns, your short form breakdowns with timings and such, and then you might just sort of casually go back and forth with the director about it, and then you might distribute it to all the heads of departments yourself, something like that. But then with like a bigger production like this, there was a lot more, like we gotta like talk with the director on the down low about it, like see what she says about it, schedule a meeting about it, and then maybe talk to the ADs about it a little bit. And when that's okay, then we would like sort of shoot it off to certain people. And then we need to double check who we have to send these things off to. And then, so there was a little more of that like structure.
A lot more protocol. There's a lot more protocol on the big features, due in part to confidentiality, but also, I mean, it's just safeguards for confidentiality and maximizing the director's time. And there were meetings that you attended that you had never attended before. Like you came to the workflow meeting, remember?
Oh yeah, there was a post workflow meeting, which is really interesting in that there was one, because in other productions,
there's always one.
Smaller ones, yeah.
There's always one. It's just they don't invite us on non-union stuff. Yeah,
I guess, and also like on certain non-union stuff, like really small stuff. Sometimes they didn't even have an editor. By the in prep, like really really small scale stuff. And it was sort of like the wild, wild west of production out there. So you sort of get different sort of way in the way things work and how they're organized. So I definitely was surprised by the post workflow meeting, even though I didn't really understand what like a lot of what they were saying, just because it was like all very technical post.
All the codecs and all the the aspect ratios and stuff. Yeah. but we do need to understand that flow. And I mean, you could see like they addressed us for a chunk of that meeting, so you could see why we had to be there. Yeah. And how about, we had a meeting with the editors in LA, and how was that eye-opening for you?
Oh yeah, like that was really nice. Like I feel like before I had maybe been on a phone call with the editor or something like that before, like on an email sort of basis. But to actually have a meeting with these people from LA and sort of like the bigger editing team and just going over everything the way we did, it made things easier for sure. And I sort of understood like what they wanted and like how we would communicate better. So that was really great as well.
And how have they been with you since I left? It's still good, right? They're very good communicators. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like they would email. Joe called me once about something as well. Yeah, so it's been like great, like much more open communication than some of the other like non-union stuff I was part of.
Wonderful. What I hope that you take with you, I mean, first of all, I hope you get offered membership after this. You've just done a big tier A feature. I hope that you are offered membership after this. But in case you're not, in case you end up still doing non-union and all that, I hope you take with you that all that protocol that we did, all those meetings, you can still do it in non-union. You can still negotiate for, more prep and explain, these are all the, Michaela and I actually came on board really late. Normally we'd be at rehearsals because it's a dance movie. We'd be at all the dance rehearsals, which by the way, they did for months. I would have gone to at least a few days of them, but the original script supervisor left so late in the game that we didn't even get to go to rehearsal. So it was kind of flying by the seat of our pants. So then we got to set. So we went through prep. You were, I remember a comment you made saying something about the efficiency of all the emails, like getting shit done on email or something.
Oh yeah, there were so many emails. I mean, I guess in prep we do send a lot of emails, but I guess just with Daniela from her years of experience, like knowing who to email about what. And sort of going back and forth, tracking the different things we're emailing about. Like that was obviously something I was not used to, again, because the scale of this film was so big, as opposed to other productions where I would shoot a couple emails with this department and that would be that. But with this one, there was a lot more organizing happening. So that was really impressive to see.
Well, the thing of it is also because of COVID, normally we would listen. Sometimes I even get an office set right up in the production office. Not always, but sometimes. But because it's COVID, we had to do everything by email. One of the things we had to arrange is neither Michaela or I drive. Neither of us drive. And so we had to arrange transportation as part of our contract because most of the locations were well out of town, like well out of town. We couldn't, like an Uber, even the studio was, for me, was like $100 Uber back and forth. So I said, no way, we're not going to do that. So they're still treating you well with those rides, right, Michaela?
Oh yeah, I still get it.
Okay, good. It's part of your contract. Yeah. So I was able to help you in negotiations and also and just get that stuff sort of sorted out. So we got to set, and production made this very weird request that because the first 3 days we were way out of town, they had to put everyone up in a hotel. They said, don't bring Michaela out the first week. We're going to start her the second week, which I thought was odd. But I realized if she wasn't going to come in like on the fourth day, she was going to miss some big 3-camera dance numbers, right? Which are like, so I wrote them back and I said, look, it's counterproductive to not have Michaela on set with me when we're doing, this is when I need an assistant. And it's also when Michaela needs to see how the big dance numbers are going to work with 3 cameras. And they said, oh yes. Like they said yes right away. And it was awesome because you were thrown right into the fire. How did you talk us through that first day a little bit, how that was? Because that was the first time you were a script assistant on set.
Yes. So basically I didn't know how anything was going to work. I had never been a script assistant before. And I think on Facebook, other script supervisors, like they mentioned how script assistantship works where they are. Like they would say something like, oh, they can do this, but they can't do that, or like that kind of thing. But in Toronto, as far as, this feature is concerned, there were no real rules. I just sort of helped out with whatever Daniela needed. Sort of did like similar work and we just sort of compared notes. So again, I didn't know how it was going to work on set. And I think what Daniela insisted was she'll sort of do the major paperwork. Like she'll constructive.
At the beginning. Yeah. Oh, until I was on. Yeah, that's right. I did the major paperwork because I was still getting paid more. I wouldn't feel right about you doing the paperwork, even though, because you know how to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and on the onset reports Daniela did, it was her reports that went out. But basically, I just sort of like shadowed her and sort of basically did the work, like short of actually filling out the reports and sending them off. But I was basically there doing something similar, and it was really helpful because on that first day, it was like a big 3-camera day, and it was a musical number, and we were covering different characters, different parts of the song, and I think just before that, I had come off a NABED feature, but it had been like a week or so. So I was sort of like just getting back into onset mode, and there were 3 cameras. So for the first few shots, I was just sort of nodding and thinking, yes, Ella, your notes look good. I kind of know how to watch things. And then as the day went on, I sort of got a hang of watching the different cameras again, and sort of getting unrusted, I guess. But yeah, for sure, that first day, it was really impressive just because the scale of the film, again, this was my first day on set, and there were already like 4 or 5 major characters, a bunch of background dancers, a pretty big field, like 3-camera team, and like a bigger production team than I was used to in the previous feature and the non-union stuff before that. So yeah, it was definitely cool to see, but also cool to compare and contrast with the other productions I've been on, because the basic structure is still the same, of course, with the director.
Yes, the job is still the same. It's just your job on when there's extra cameras, it's your job on crack or whatever. It's just like amplified, but it's not, it's not any different. The responsibilities are the same. So I just want to talk about that a little bit more. I did forget to say that I had Michaela do her own script timing breakdown because it was ultimately her show. I did one as well. And that's the one I issued to the crew. But you know what? She came in within 30 seconds of my timing. This is how I knew, like, there was no question. She was on it. Because I'm known for my timings internationally. I get hired just to time other people's shows, right? Michaela came within 30 seconds. So I just want to say that was the first sign to me that she's going to have no problem with this show. Anyway, so on the first day of set, so yes, it's true. In Toronto, the script assistant, there's no rules about what they can or cannot do. Their only rule in Toronto is if you're on set as a trainee and you're unpaid, you're not allowed to work. So you can only work if you're there in a union function. So that's great. So script assistants, basically it's like when the thing is that, if you're a script assistant, you shouldn't, I would imagine you can't take over the floor, right? Like you have to, you can't be forced to take over the floor because then you would be upgraded to script supervisor. So what we did with Michaela, so my philosophy with Michaela, originally I was going to do 10 days, but it was getting boring for me because she's too good. She's so good. Like it was really like they were just doing it to appease themselves, having me there, right? She was very well trained by me in the classroom and by other people in the classroom. She's very, very well trained. Her experience level she had the right amount of experience. When I did pitch her to production, I said, look, all your leads are 13 years old. Don't you want someone closer to their age? and first they were like, but then I was like, look, when I was 28, somebody gave me my first break on a very big $30 million Warner Brothers feature. Why can't someone have that same break? It worked out for me. It will work out for Michaela. And it did, because I was doing union films, but indie union films until I got my first big movie. But anyway, so then production got more comfortable with it. Like, I think the moment they met you, they were fine, I think. But that first day, you were kind of thrown into the fire because we had not only this big scene, but we had a lot of mismatches. So Michaela got to see like when and how often I ran into try to correct the body positions, because it was a lot of the actors' first day on set. So what I love is that I'm not on Scripty. I'm digital, but I'm not on Scripty. And Michaela is on Scripty. And we had Q-Take on this production. Was that you've used Q-Take before, right, Michaela?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Q-Take before, but it was only like 1, maybe 2 cameras.
Oh, okay. Okay. Because I love Q-Take. I'm not on Scripty, so I can do screen grabs on my iPad all day long. But I loved that. So what I ended up starting Michaela with as my script assistant is having her do all the screen grabs. I remember because she had her Scripty app out on her iPad. She uses laptop and iPad, and I use a laptop and iPad, but not Scripty. And we were at the monitors. We were physically stationed inside the director's tent. So it was myself, Michaela, the director, producer, and the choreographer. So after the first few days, I was going to fade into the background, have Michaela take over set, and I'd be monitoring from the director's monitors, so that the director and everyone on set could get used to the fact that Michaela is the script supervisor. So how was that transition for you, Michaela?
It was okay because I think the days that I transitioned, we were back to 1 or 2 cameras.
Oh, that's true. We were, yeah.
So it was definitely easier in that sense. But yeah, it was pretty good. I really liked that fact that we did that transitioning system because we were so used to the set and everything. It was just who's doing the actual notes and the sending out. Yeah, that kind of thing. So yeah, it was actually really fluid. And you were still there and everything. And again, like advising me on everything. So it was great.
So the director would yell out script, and so Michaela and I would go to set together. And sometimes I would send her out on her own, and then eventually she was on her own. I was just typing the notes in the tent. It was great. If it ran that way where you were my full-time script assistant, it would have been amazing. Like that would have been an amazing way to work. Like in terms of me being, like either way, but I would be taking more of the lead if I was the full-time script. I kept addressing myself as mentor script supervisor on all the correspondence so they could see it's not my show, it's Michaela's show. So I hope that they reflect that in the credits, that either they don't give me a credit, or if they do, it'll just say consulting script supervisor or mentor script supervisor. And then I hope it's your full-on credit. I wanted to ask you about I physically had Michaela stand beside Tamara, because Tamara was a kind of director who worked on set. Some of you may have worked with Tamara before, I don't know. Was that the first time you'd ever done that, or you were used to that, right?
So I guess it depends on the director. Like, as you said, Tamara is very, very on set. Like, she is never at the big monitor. She is right there with the action and the mini monitors. The grips have that little stand thing set up for her so she can look at the mini monitors all the time. And I had done something similar before. I actually had gotten used to doing sort of the Mac scripty thing, which sort of requires me to be hooked up to the bigger monitors. And that had worked out for like a few projects before this one. But before that period, I was always on the iPad scripty, which I really loved because it made me so mobile. And in that feature that did well at Tribeca, for the novice, the director was also very, very mobile. Like, we were on a boat together for like 8 days at night, like without a roof. It was just a boat. So cold. Yeah, so for that, I had worked on like scripting on the iPad before. So I sort of had to go back to that system. I'm not sure if you were there, but I started bringing my like little music stand out for like placing iPads on them, and just sort of moving with Tamara. Like, that kind of became my thing, and then it still is.
Good. The one thing I do always tell my students, because some of them come into the course with experience, and if I hear that they're not doing that, I'm like, you have to adapt to the director, and it's too bizarre if we're not right as close to them as we can be. So I'm so glad that worked out. I like that I think if I were to use Scripty, I would use it on the iPad for that reason. I hate being tethered. Yeah, I have to be free to run back and forth. With my favorite directors, I sit right beside the camera with them. Like with Paul Feig, that's how we sit on Apple boxes together right on set, with our iPads with Q-Take on it. And so I'm so glad. Robin in Texas said, how did you feel on the first day Daniela was gone and you were alone?
I guess it was actually kind of, okay, because even when Daniela was on set, she tended to be in the tent, and I was sort of getting used to going out there beside Tamara, and then we would come back to the tent to like check and exchange notes. So it was kind of like that, except when I went back to the tent, she wasn't there. So It was kind of sad.
It was kind of sad. Virginia asked me, how does your paperwork reflect takes from multiple cameras? Well, that's a long, okay. So that's part of my course, of course, like that's something we trained with in the classroom. It's a lot to explain. It's not sort of the focus of this talk, but it's not hard. It's something we trained on in the classroom. It's just, what was it, like an hour and a half of my program is dealing with multiple camera paperwork, right? So I couldn't repeat all that here. There is a difference. There's a reason, by the way, Virginia, that we get a camera bump. So we get paid extra for every extra camera on set. $60 per extra camera. And the reason is because of the extra paperwork involved. And it's for every sort of camera team that comes in. That's how I do it. Some script supervisors charge for every GoPro. I don't. It's for every camera team that comes in, because we have to talk to them. We have to monitor the eye lines. We have to, it's just extra work, right? Sally, how do your feet survive standing by the director all day? Oh, good question. How do you feel about that? Michaela's young.
Yeah, honestly, it's probably because I'm young. I probably couldn't do this like 20 years from now, but like now I'm sort of like, oh, I take long
Well, you
walks.
could, because I do. I mean, even this year I've done that. I've stood beside the director all day. It actually, you know what? It's actually healthier for us to stand than to sit all day. Melissa says, hey now. You know, you could, but you still need good footwear. You'll need better footwear when you're older. And also you can ask, by the way, for an Apple box. So, you know, the grips will give you an Apple box to sit on, or you can even bring sometimes I bring my whole chair right out to set. It's more to, I say it's more to carry. The props people will carry it for us, but I'm very stubborn. I always carry my own chairs because I always want to be like there at rehearsal. I don't want to miss anything waiting for people to move my chair. So you don't necessarily. Suggestions for footwear, says Ryan. I don't know for you guys. I like Blundstones. What about you, Michaela? Well, you're like,
I just wear like regular, I guess buy like new sneakers every year. That kind of helps. And I'll get those like soles. I think they're called soft soles. Like there are like extra padding soles you can put in your shoes. I use those, and also I guess I don't know if it's a bit of a cheat, but I also own like a Zuka bag. Daniela's seen it. It's like one of those rolly bags, but you can sit on them, like the suitcases that makeup artists use. Yeah, I do have one of those. So if my feet hurt a lot, then I can just roll it out and sit on it.
I wanted to say, Michaela's got all the best hacks. Like she's got all these gadgets. Like I loved your Zuka bag. A Zuka bag is something I always wanted to invest in and I never did. I don't know why, but like it is great. You can use it as a seat when you're tired, but it's just the perfect size. It's not too heavy, all of that, right? But Michaela had this incredible umbrella. It started pouring rain and she pulls out her umbrella and hands it to me so I could go get my COVID test. I was like, oh my God. And she had all these incredible, like she's just got an amazing kit. So I thought that was lovely. Like just you're so on it. Itzel says, how helpful did you find hearing how Daniela gives notes?
I guess what I learned was honestly, sometimes it's sort of double checking like what I was doing. So how I had operated until that point, and honestly seeing like, does she do the same thing? Does she run out as quickly or as slowly as I do? Like how long does she wait after someone yells cut that, you know, we can go out and give notes? How fast do we give notes like in that duration? Like those little things, I think that like, especially earlier on when we start to operate and have questions about like those things, I got some confirmation on. I think an example would be like Tamara would yell cut or whatever, and then Daniela would just like, she would bolt out of there, like not running, but like still like she'd like,
sometimes running,
super efficient on set, like giving that note, and then she'd come right back, and then like I could just gauge by the speed, like, oh, that's how fast I should move. Like even things like that really helped.
You actually made me cry. My last day, I was in the tent. It was like one of the last setups, and Tamara is so cool about checking with the script supervisor. Not every director does, but Tamara would yell out, are we okay to move on? We were doing this setup and it was cutting in. It was a scene where one of the actresses was singing a solo and then she gets up and the song continues. But we did a couple of takes where Tamara did not have her stand. And I said, okay, I'm going to run out and say like, should you have one where she's, you know, gets up out of frame, you know, for the overlap on the edit. And I was about to bolt out of my chair and Tamara said, cut. And I heard over my headset, Michaela say, do you want one where she sits out of frame? And Tamara said, thank you so much. Because that made me cry, Michaela, because I knew you had heard me in class when we were talking about watching all the editing points and I knew that it was okay for me to leave early because you were on it.
Like that's amazing to hear. When you told me, I was like, oh my God, I made her cry. But that's honestly like thanks to you. Because okay, so in Daniela's class, like I've taken a couple other courses on script supervision as well, but Daniela has this very strong foundation in editing and how it serves the edit, how it serves the cutting points. And like knowing that, like, and like learning that and sort of trying to apply more and more in my craft, like it's really helped a lot, I guess, the director and of course the movie as a whole. So yeah, that day for sure, it was just one of those things, again, having learned it from Daniela, that it sort of popped up. So yeah.
Well, it can make or break a cut. So I was very, very proud of you. And so, yeah. And so I did end up leaving early. I mean, I had stuff to do. I really couldn't stick around. Ryan asks, what are you still uncomfortable with and how are you making the adjustment to help you do your job better?
Oh, okay. So I'm so glad you asked the question, Ryan, because I mean, there's a bit of a list, but just to like talk about a couple things, I guess. Oh my God, thank you. Would be, thank you, Monique. Would be, for instance, sort of, I guess, how Tamara likes to work. So obviously we were always figuring it out. And I think it's something you figure out like throughout the course of the entire production, and things can change. But for instance, by communicating sort of more with Tamara, I sort of figured out more like when to give notes and what she prefers to see like before I step in with a note, or like when to ask about continuity. So an example would be she really likes to get like 2 or 3 takes before going into correcting continuity. So I might ask, like, can we have that extra take, but like this time, you know, have this happen on this beat? And she might say, oh yeah, for sure, let's get that one for continuity. Or she might say, no, it's okay, I'm probably not going to use that. So something like that.
She's really good that way as a director. She understands the size of the fan she's walking into every day. So that's great. No, that's great. And I know you're aware of that stuff too, but I know you're also a perfectionist. That's why I say you're a better continuity person than me. You care so much more than I do. Yes. Yeah, Ryan says, great answer. Yeah. Those can be the most uncomfortable conversations, but I love your style on set because you do not take it personally. It's good.
Oh yeah, I don't. I mean, we're all under like a lot of pressure. So honestly, I don't take it personally. I mean, we're all just doing a job. We just want to make the best thing possible.
I loved the diversity on that set. Do you want to talk about that? Because it was a very special project for that.
This project definitely has a huge diversity in the overall cast, and this has a big cast. It's an ensemble.
And crew.
Yes. So like I wasn't the only Asian on set, which sometimes happens. So that's been great off the bat. Yeah, so there has been definitely much more diversity than like other productions I came off of recently. So that's been amazing to see. And there has been a conscious effort for things, not just for diversity, but for things like sustainability, for things like health and safety. They did not joke around with this stuff. There was a lot of care that went into stuff like that, at least for this feature. So that's been great to see as well.
Oh, so good. It made me happy. It was one of the things that I didn't want to leave. I was like, oh, this is one of the nicest sets I've ever been on. Like it feels so comfortable to have a set that reflects the world around us. Ryan said, I understand that this set is super inclusive and mindful about the care and respect for all its employees. How has this made a difference to the way you work and how different is it from other sets?
Like mine, Daniela.
Like mine.
I guess it's been good because like as an example, I'm sure we've all been on one of those sets where the set is very sort of, especially the camera team can sort of be very sort of like exclusive and in their bubble. And there's been ones where I was afraid to bring something up because they were all like older men of a certain type who sort of like talk in a certain way, and then it's like I was only asking something to double check, but then they would sort of almost take it offensively, like I was telling them what to do. It was almost like when there's like too much of like one type of thinking or one type of like the way things work, it's hard to sort of communicate. But there being like a diversity of like the way people communicate, or just being consciously aware that there are different sorts of mindsets, and the fact that we have to be more open when we communicate, that sort of thing made communication easier. Like that kind of
Oh
thing.
my God. That is so insightful. You just nailed something that I, because I had 30 years and most of that working with, sorry, older white men who thought in a certain way and would exclude us from conversations and all of that, and fighting that for 30 years. I took it for granted that was, you just nailed it. I love that. It's one of the reasons I love working with female directors too. But yeah, just the whole thing, it was beautiful. And I feel like this is the future, and I'm so glad for everyone who's entering the business right now. It's you're entering it in a wonderful time for diversity and for gender equity and all of that. Not that it's perfect yet, but it's at least there's starting to be an effort made. Amanda, how often do you take pictures versus taking notes? Also, for us to know how to advocate for more assistance, what's the best way to pitch that to producers? So these are great questions. So do you want to talk about the pictures, and I'll take the second part of the question?
Yeah, sounds great. So with the pictures, I'm so glad you brought this up, because basically I sort of changed my setup for each production to suit the production's needs, as Daniela has seen. So for this one, I started using Zoe, Zoe from our network, Zoe's
Yes.
iPad method. So on one,
Zoe BGO. Oh, sorry. Zoe did a talk for my students on her double iPad method on Scripty. Go ahead. Yes.
It works. It's amazing. I still have to write her like a thank you note on it, but basically I have two iPads, very lucky to have two. And on one I would sort of run QTake. And then on one I would have Scripty and like Good Notes open. So I can like scribble notes and like have sort of like a script on the other side. And I can sort of swipe back and forth between Scripty and Good Notes. Mm-hmm. So one for notes, one for QTake. And so on the QTake, you could take screen grabs. But what I also found is that QTake only lets you take screen grabs of 1 feed at a time. So if there are like,
oh no, you can do all three. You can set it up to take screen grabs of all.
Oh, can you? Okay, so maybe.
Yeah. Okay. It's just one setting. It's one setting, and then when you tap, it'll take all the cameras.
Oh, okay, I see. Does that show up as like a combined photo in your photos?
No, it shows up as individual photos in your files. I should show you that. Sorry, you didn't. I didn't know that you thought that. I've been doing it for years on QTake, and it'll if you have it in the right setting and you just tap, all the photos will come up in your files in order of camera.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that's good to know. I guess what I also like to have is that picture of like all three cameras showing up, like in one.
Oh, yes. Yep. That's true. That's a good thing.
Yeah. So what I ended up doing is I can also tap for individual photos, but I've been telling Daniela about this, but I found this app on the iPhone, and it's basically just a timed camera app. So this thing will automatically take a picture, let's say every 2 seconds. So I got a mount. It's like a gooseneck mount on Amazon. So I would have this looking at my iPad, and this will automatically take snaps of my QTake screen every 2-3 seconds. So I would just let that go. And so this will do its screen grabbing thing while I just the monitors and taking notes. And that's been extremely helpful. So I just wanted to.
Oh my God. See what I mean when I said Michaela's got all the tricks and all the hacks? I love it. I love it. You did write to me about that, and I completely forgot. That's very cool. See, I'm so old school. I need to tap on the cutting points. So as I'm, I'd be like, cutting point, I train you guys to see the cutting points, but that's how I'm tapping personally. But that's great. That's really wicked. It's especially if, you're doing things like reading off camera lines and having to do all that at once. It's wonderful. Okay. So the second part of the question was how to advocate for more assistance. I mean, we were able to do it because we're overrun with work. There's another issue. We need a whole new generation trained. Not that I haven't, I feel no guilt because I've been training people solidly for 25 years. Everyone in the union, well, over 90% of the members are people I've trained, and 98% of the permits are people I've trained. I've trained people in other locals. Like I have no guilt about the lack of a new generation because I've been doing my part. Okay. But, still not the same as being able to train someone on set. It was really special for me because I used to, by the way, up until 2001, I don't know what changed in the industry in 2001, but up until 2001, I was always able to have a trainee on set. It was always my thing. I'd have a trainee on set. They wouldn't pay for my trainee, but at least I could bring someone out to observe. And I was telling Simon was asking me how long, because he was able to get someone paid to come out for one day, which is awesome. But normally I would train people for 6 weeks. So if it was TV, they could get a few episodes in. If it was a feature, they could get all or most of the feature in. They were coming in on their own dime, though. That's what's got to change. Camera gets paid trainees, So one of the ways that we can advocate for it, by the way, so after 2001, for some reason, productions really clamped down and said, confidentiality, insurance reasons, we can't have extra bodies on set. So the only time I could have someone quote unquote as my assistant, they were an intern. So we had a few internship programs in Toronto, and as they have across all of North America for NBC, Disney. I don't know if ABC has one, but NBC has a great it's a diversity one on the NBC front. Not all of them are diversity focused, but so I had diversity interns on Suits. I had a whole bunch, and they would just rotate through whatever department they wanted to train with. And very often they would train with me, and they got paid. So they got paid by NBC. So they weren't allowed to do script work of any kind, but at least I could train them. So that was one way to do it. But that's not enough because they weren't actually paid to be script assistants. They were paid trainees, which is still a step up, but it's not enough of a step up, right? So the way we can advocate is, okay, if your town is really busy and like, listen, I have to say that after this gig with Michaela, I got a call and the producer asked me, what have you been up to? And I said, well, I've just been onboarding like a really talented new script supervisor that we're, and he was blown away. He said, we need that. Thank you. Do you know how hard it is for me to get a good script supervisor? And he said, we need more of that. So you'd be amazed. We always think the producers are the enemy, that they're going to shut us down. So first I would say, at least ask. So if you at least ask, you might hear a yes. This is what's been happening for me. My give a damn's busted now because I'm on my way out. But on Slumberland, I didn't get the job, but I had told the producer 6 months before, because he said, you're coming in for an interview 6 months before. I said, great, but I'm going to need a full-time COVID backup script supervisor. And they budgeted for that. He got paid to stay home and be backup if the main unit person got sick. So we create work by asking for what we need, right? The worst they can do is say no. So I don't fear the no. I fear more what happens if I don't have a script assistant and I'm doing a major motion picture with 3 cameras. And, I really, and me personally, I suffer from aches and pains and everything. I would love knowing, as someone older, that I have a younger person who's not sick, or even an older person who's not sick like me. Like I've just gone through a big upheaval with my health in the past 3 years, which is almost better, like knock wood. But I've had to really think about this stuff, right? I've had to think about this stuff. And by the way, I said younger, but I've trained people that are 20 years older than me. When I was younger, when I started, I was 23 when I joined my first union. So I trained someone in her 40s who just retired same year as me now, at the time, right? And I continue to have to train people much older than me. So when I say younger, I mean healthier. How's that? Because I feel my age in my health more than anything else. Not in much else. So yeah, ask for it. If you're on a show with a number of cameras. So I know that on Long Kiss Goodnight, one of my students was the script trainee on that, because Renee Harlan pulls out 16 cameras. Wayne got the chance to train, on a huge set. Was it Long Kiss Goodnight? Yeah, it was that movie, I believe. And then, so there's that, every single time I'm on location, and I've worked in 11 countries, I ask for a local trainee, because it's only polite when you're working in someone else's jurisdiction, but also you're in these locations and you're on those jobs because they obviously don't have enough local staff, right? So I always say, take the opportunity. Production will almost never say no to that. Like that's in a way, Simon must be here, but I think that's how he got his paid trainee. He was working in Northern Ontario, where they're desperate for local script supervisors who they can get the tax credit on. Ryan, how has your life changed with this opportunity, and what are your future aspirations?
Ooh, very interesting. Well, my life has changed in the short term, in the sense that I'm employed until August 5th, which is great. But I guess my life has also changed in the sense that now, of course, with this on my resume, hopefully I can go on to get more jobs, and do more script supervision. And I think just with, I guess, maybe film and script supervision in general, because there's always that question, even as I do it, and maybe others feel the same, where they think like, am I gonna stay in script supervision like forever, or am I gonna try directing or writing or something like that? And for sure, this has taught me that, at least for the time being, yeah, script supervision can definitely be the method with which I can make a living and learn more about film and how everything works in the industry. So that's been great. I guess future aspirations. I like to write. Like I've been like learning a bit about screenwriting. I would love to try screenwriting more. Even if it doesn't go anywhere, it's just something I would like to try. I know there are others who would love to direct. I know a lot of script supervisors have gone on to direct. I'm not sure if I would want to direct necessarily, but I guess now knowing that I can do this somewhat stably, I'm guessing, that's definitely an avenue that I could explore if I wanted to later on. So for sure, this opportunity has been amazing. Like, thank you so much, Daniela, for making it happen, insisting on this script assistantship. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh no, my God. We never have enough. No, I've trained hundreds and hundreds of people all over the world. Never enough script supervisors, really. What did I want to say? Oh, I was going to ask you, how's your bank account? Like, you don't have to tell us how much, but like, you guys have been doing short days, but it's been pretty nice, right? The change from non-union.
For sure. Like even with doing like 9 hours, it's been like really good. Like the consistency, and of course the rate is much higher than in non-union.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's much higher if you go to the New York local. Someone asked specifically about your kit, Michaela.
With Daniela using Excel, Michaela using Scripty, how did you?
Oh no, it was a question we missed earlier. And then also Excel's question. Me being on well, it's not Excel, I use Open Office, but yes, with me being on Open Office and you being on Scripty, how did you handle the transition of production reports?
Oh, basically just I just do it as we regularly do it on Scripty. To the partial daily report for the lunch reports, and then just the progress report for the top sheet, the editor log, the facing line pages, and
so you didn't keep my top sheet. You didn't keep my top sheet. Production was fine with that though, right?
Oh yeah, it was basically fine. They didn't ask for any changes, although if they wanted, I could have definitely added sections in the stuff below. And I guess in sort of keeping with your style, I did write out like what we cover, the specific shots owing, stuff like that. I write out more often, like at the bottom, I include more detail for that. And that's good so far. And also, I guess now, as you know, with Scripty, we can do a time code log. So that's like to have.
So someone wanted to know what was exactly in your kit.
It's actually like a pretty straightforward list. I mean, I could even say it very vaguely here, which is I just have the 2 iPads. I have a Pro just for it's bigger and it's got more storage. So I use that for, let's say, Q-Take streaming. And I have a smaller iPad Air for Scripty and keeping notes. Like you use an Apple Pencil, you scribble in it. Daniela's seen it, just like writing on paper. Just those two. And I have like 2 phones. I didn't get like a fancy one or anything. It's just that I got a new phone like a while ago and I kept my old phone. So I just have those 2 phones. One again for the timed camera app system. And then the other one, of course, I use for, taking continuity photos or having it for whatever reason. So I just have those 2 phones, 2 iPads. And of course, I do have a Mac system. So I have a Mac Air and I have the Blackmagic. And I use like a freak show switcher when I hook up to the to the big one.
I have the old school switcher, the old school, but I hardly use it. I prefer to using Q-Take. And she's got this thing, which I never saw before, which is a charger for her laptop, like a portable laptop charger.
Oh
Those
yeah,
are great.
it's those like I think it's on Amazon. It's like Anchor batteries, but I have the biggest ones possible. They're like super heavy. They look and feel like bricks, but I keep like 2 of those. And if you just have like 2, you can basically charge anything you need to. Oh, by the way, for this feature, I do not hook up to anything via the wire. So I don't bother the electrics. I just have the 2 brick batteries. I switch back and forth, and that's enough to like power up my 2 iPads and 2 phones for the day. Even with the Mac Air, you could, if you have a Mac Air and you don't have too much of use out of it, then you can just be fully mobile. So I like to have those 2 brick batteries with me.
Diane wants to know how you collated Daniela's notes into your system if you needed to refer. Before you answer that, I want to say, I don't tell my second unit people what system to use. I let them use whatever they want. So I never worry about collating notes. If someone's on Scripty, they're on Scripty, and the editors usually don't mind. I don't have to redo anything. Go ahead, Michaela.
That's true. So I think in other stuff, when there was one person on Scripty and one person not, it's no problems. We just make a note like refer to this PDF and we would call it a day. But for this one, because I was sort of on the clock, so to speak, and I was available while Daniela was shooting in Beaton, what I did was I did go through the painstaking process of actually typing everything up into Scripty. It took a very long time, but it was only like 5 days of notes. So as soon as the notes came in, I did import everything. I did everything, but only because I had the time to do so. Normally, I would leave it as a PDF and I would just pull it up and I would say, look at this PDF.
And I think that was actually in a way good for your training because you could see the kind of notes I wrote, Yeah. Yeah. But I've done massive shows like Shazam and like just massive shows where the second unit person used a completely different system than I do. And it's all good with me. You can't, I know it's a rule in the New York local. It's actually not a rule in Toronto. You're not allowed to discriminate by the system a script supervisor uses. In Toronto, very often you'll see some TV script supervisors saying Scripty preferred or Scripty, we only want to talk to Scripty people. So yeah, of course I'm, I'm a veteran, so I can do whatever I want. But editors always, they're always saying, they're always praising my notes. So I've never had a problem, but I also don't have a problem with other people's. Congrats, Michaela, says Amanda. Can't wait for this to be normalized everywhere. Yes, please, whatever we can do to make this a thing, especially this is what I worry about for the future is they keep throwing more cameras at us. They keep, so on shows like there's a few that are just painful. They have 2 or 3 units going and they don't always have a script supervisor on every unit. And the main unit's shooting like 100 setups a day. So like, it's brutal, just an onslaught of work. So I would bring that up to the PM. Great. I would like a full-time script assistant who can then become the script supervisor when there's a second unit. And, they can say no, and then I can say no to the gig. I mean, I'm retiring, but that's how I would play it personally. And my case would be, well, you guys are notoriously doing an onslaught of work. They know how hard it's been when they couldn't fill the job. There's so much more we could talk about. Did you want to say anything else that we haven't said today, Michaela?
I guess I just wanted to say, well, thank you obviously for not just for the interview, but for like having me on board as a script assistant. And I just wanted to say, like, it was so amazing. And it's of course important to have script assistants, script apprentices. But I just also wanted to say I think it's definitely something we should always push for because something changes when there's more than one person in a department. It's literally something as small as you can go to the bathroom or have one person grab food. Like, honestly, it's like the smallest thing that makes the biggest difference. When I see like ACs running back and forth, grabbing things for the department, like that's an incredible thing. We can actually eat, go to the bathroom. And of course, one person can't possibly catch everything. So having another brain just improves the job. And they can't complain about, oh, like, why can't everyone be as great as you, Daniela? Well, maybe if you let her train more people on every set, we would have more great script supervisors. it's like, for me, like, that's how you keep things going. But I guess, you know,
I don't hold back when I train you guys. Sorry, I'm going to type in, someone asked for my email, mondocinema@gmail.com. Everyone is welcome to email me. I won't, I have like 300 students around the world, so I won't be able to answer everyone all the time, but everyone in our programs gets me. This normally would have been our, every Saturday we do an hour of live Q&A. This would have normally been it. But I think this was so valuable to do, and to have people outside our group, to have other script supervisors. Michaela, thank you so much. I'm so proud of you. I could not be prouder. Okay, I'm gonna get teary. I get teary when I talk. I will see you. Have a great rest of your shoot. Okay?
Oh, I definitely will. Like, thank you everybody for your kind words, and thank you, Daniela, for like obviously all this, but like always continuing support for all your students and for like group supervisors. It's amazing. Thank you so much.